Hello everyone. On behalf of Henry Stewart Events, we would like to welcome you to the Festival of Dam 2023. I'm delighted to introduce you to our conference chair, David Lipsey. Thank you, David. Over to you.
Great. Thanks so much, Ed. It's a delight to be here and to welcome everyone. We're enjoying our 20th year of Henry Stewart Dam events on the art and practice of managing digital media, all from the user's perspective. As we note, so much of the wisdom and so many of the insights our speakers and community share today are born of this generational community. And how appropriate that we, indeed, use the word welcome today to our community of more than 2,000 professionals with a special greeting as we open the doors to our fourth Festival of Dam. I do like this word, festival. To all of you, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I would love to have a show of hands for all those present who are in the first years of their Dam careers. Of course, this is a bit tricky on our virtual conference platform, at least today, but we know the number has grown and grows every week. Yes, weekly. While our central world is Dam, our area code, or maybe zip or postal code is more appropriate for me, includes energetic growth in AI, in metadata tools, creative operations, product information management and its cultural heritage twin, collections management, data awareness, as per Madi Solomon's forthcoming data maturity class, and even the positioning of Dam within our organizations. So a special welcome to all of you early in your Dam careers. This is a community that welcomes and indeed seeks collaborations. Throughout the Henry Stewart events, in person and virtual, we're focused on you, this vibrant community, on our working better and now affirmed more than ever in ongoing professional education for Dam, globally available. Today, we hear about common issues from uncommon and varied perspectives. We start with an exploration of how one of the world's most historic and critical sources of information, the Associated Press, now in its 177th year, is using state-of-the-art AI tools and Dam together. During our time together, well-known international brands are complemented by our colleagues from Carnegie Hall, where a scant 132 years of history live vibrantly and in daily kinetic dialogue every day, representing the gallery, library, archives, museum, and performing arts, or GLAMP as we say, world. This community convenes on February 8th for our fourth annual Museums and Dam Conference, welcoming each year more than 2,000 professionals worldwide. I noted with great interest that the last session of Madi's course is devoted in large part to ROI, tying her insights about metadata and taxonomy to discussing measurable efficiency. Take note, stay tuned. This marks a trend we will see more and more of about the value of digital assets, both the binary and the metadata. We round the corner to 2024, coming up soon, with the joy of having shared these greetings in person to well more than 1,000 colleagues at our live events in Los Angeles, London, and New York City. And that's not including the hundreds of colleagues from the creative production conferences, many of whom will meet live again in Los Angeles next week. Ours is a central role in business and organizational work today, and which careers that wait well into the future. The speakers who come together today reflect so many pathways to our community in Dam. We restate a basic fact of our life in Dam. Dam often starts operationally, but needs to grow strategically. And whether we work for an organization that binds itself around a profit and loss statement, or, and you've heard me say this before, the M&Ms, meaning mission and mandate statements, driven by services we provide to charity, in environmental advocacy, governmental operations, or commitments we keep in our societies to culture and arts, I foresee and I want the day when this strategic seeding is our expectation from the start. We are the stewards of this value, and we are recognized as such. We manage, all of us, operations every day, and increasingly, we manage up, out, and ahead to the future. Content lives in a borderless state. It's restless. Its three-part atomic elements of the binary, the metadata, and the associated rights can be both an asset and a walk right through platform 8 3/4. And suddenly, we need the damn team to wave their wands and make magic happen. Content lives in a borderless state, and we prepare for this, for those recombinant content DNA opportunities we see and we must manage. There are so many people to thank for an event like this, each of you, the vendor, analyst, and consulting communities who are lucky enough to work with DAM every day and bring tremendous passion and smarts to our world, and the ever gracious Henry Stewart staff in engagement in creating this conference and community for us. Welcome to the Festival of DAM 2023. And a few housekeeping notes. A thank you to our attendees from across the globe in joining to celebrate all things digital asset management. We thank our sponsors, Sitecore and Brandfolder, for supporting this event. Please visit them throughout the conference via the exhibition tab to find out more. During the sessions, we encourage you to chat. We encourage you to chat with fellow attendees and, of course, make the most of our expert speaker lineup by submitting your questions using the Q&A panel on the right side of your screen. You can also use the chat tab to get the conversation going and navigate to the lounge tab, where you can participate in real-time networking with industry peers. If at any point during the event you need assistance from the Henry Stewart team, please use the chat bot at the bottom right of your screen. There are real people there. Now, on with the show. I'm delighted to introduce our first session with Kenzie Lamb and Paul Clory from the Associated Press, who will be discussing when AI-powered search excels and when metadata search is more useful. Kenzie and Paul, over to you with thanks and appreciation for your leadership.
Thanks, David. And hello, everybody. We're very happy to be here. I'm Paul Clory, VP of Products at Associated Press. I'm glad to be here with my colleague, Kenzie Lamb, to share with you some of our experiences with AI-driven search in our news delivery systems. And skipping right to the punchline, it's been pretty great. We've really been finding needles in haystacks of our archives. So I think before we get into it, though, a little bit of context might be helpful. So to begin with, the AP was founded in 1846 by a small group of newspapers in New York. And they did this so that they could share the cost of covering the Mexican-American War, which was pretty expensive. And I'll make a side note here that the technology that was deployed at the time was not geared towards the instant delivery of breaking news to zillions of personal devices all around the world. More about that in a minute. But all these years later, the AP is a not-for-profit news cooperative and is not owned by a corporation or any group with special interests. So its independence provides the freedom, really, to cover the news without any agenda. Our customers are news publishers of every type. You've heard of them, and there are more than half of the world sees reports from the AP every day. Of course, technology has always been important to the distribution of news, and long before we relied on the internet and digital asset management systems, we used the Pony Express, which we've always worked to adopt the newest technology as it's become available. For example, the telegraph, which, by the way, effectively put the Pony Express out of business. But I was able to find this great illustration in our archive of a Pony Express rider waving to some Western Union linemen who were stringing wires from the first Continental Telegraph in 1861. So Since those early days, the AP has accumulated tens of millions of images and video minutes, and much of it is absolutely iconic stuff that we've seen throughout our lives. But that word millions is where the challenges begin. Today, we take for granted that a good bit of metadata is automatically recorded, say, in our cameras. We can digitally organize and file huge amounts of data in seconds. But in the 1860s, not so much. Who ever heard of metadata during the American Civil War, after all? And really, even today, our metadata is so often entered in free text fields or literally in the heat of battle that it isn't always consistent. That makes search and discovery extremely difficult. And digital photography has really only been the norm in the news business for less than 30 years. Prior to that, metadata and issues are even harder and more difficult. I always say that if I could go back in time, I would ask our photographers to please write down the place, their name, the words AP staff photo, a clear description of everything that they've taken a picture of on the back of their prints or on the sides of their negatives. We've digitized many, many, many images and videos over the years, but without a wealth of descriptive and consistently formatted metadata, search is really difficult for older materials. And this has been one of the customers' most frequent requests and complaints. How can we make search better? I'm frustrated that I need to wade through 15 minutes of footage to find the 20 seconds that I need. Many of us at the AP have observed that if you can't find it, you can't buy it, you can't use it. Last year, though, we began to test out some tools that used AI to sort of understand concepts in searches and also to recognize those concepts in visuals, even small portions of the visuals. This began to unlock some of our archival items that we didn't previously have a good way to surface. And that was pretty exciting. Suddenly we could enter a description, a pretty detailed description of an image we wanted. And even if there was no metadata or not very good metadata, we were finding much more useful and specific results. So after months of experimentation and tuning, we made the search tools available to our customers earlier this year in a beta format. And we've learned a great deal, including some very unexpected lessons. My colleague Kenzie has led the launch of this and has a demonstration for you, and we'll review some of the key insights that have been developed so far. So Kenzie, over to you.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you, David. Let's get into it. I started at AP in January of this year, and this was kind of my first project that I worked on. AI search at the AP is basically, we started with photos and video only. And what this technology is doing is visually scanning these assets to kind of read what is the photo, what is the video without using metadata. So we kind of say, if you can describe what you're looking for, AI will find it for you. A little bit about the process. Once the AP signed the deal with our partner, there was approximately an 8 to 9 month process from planning to implementation to rollout. We encountered some challenges along the way, namely, the first one was content processing. We began this in December and continued through the spring. AP has such a large volume of assets in our archive, it took a little longer than we expected. And then design. We had to solve for hosting 2 different searches on one platform, and I'll go into that a little more on the next slide. But throughout this whole process, we had weekly meetings with our partner about everything from content ingestion, operations, development work for integration, and even operational plans for outages, et cetera, once we launched. Our rollout plan in getting this to all our customers was kind of a phased approach so that we could kind of monitor load on our site and performance. having two different search calls on one platform puts a little bit of pressure on the performance. So we wanted to go slowly. We rolled out internally first, and then we kind of phased it out to certain clients and rolled out in waves throughout June. So by June, we were fully rolled out. And that's when we kind of engaged in our webinars, our trainings, our marketing to get the word out there. Two disclaimers before I continue. I just want to be very clear that the Associated Press is not using AI to generate any content. This is strictly a technology we are using to find what we already have in our archives. So that's point one. Point two, I want to be very clear that this AI technology that we're using was also not trained on our content. We're utilizing the technology as it came to us. They did not use our content to enhance the technology before we became partners. Okay, so let's get into the design. When we first explored implementing this, we experimented with a federated search, which means one that would combine both visual search, which is the AI search, with our current metadata Elasticsearch. The results were not quite up to par, so we decided we need two different searches on one platform. And this introduced a unique design challenge for us. And design came up with what we ultimately have today, which is you'll see the search bar at the top, and there's a little icon with a little star in it. And you click on that to turn AI on and off. If AI is turned off, we have this kind of promotional ribbon here. So for this slide, I've used Martin Luther King speaking. You'll see in the promotional ribbon, what AI-powered search would return for you if you turn on these results. And what you see is the man himself at a podium speaking. And then you'll see that contrasted with what our usual Elastic or metadata search would return. And basically that is the DC mayor speaking at the Martin Luther King Library in Washington, DC. So not quite what one might expect when using this search term. So who uses AI and when is it beneficial? We found that after implementing two different searches, there are very different use cases for each type of search. For AI-powered search, we found that, of course, digging into the archives, this has been extremely useful. Finding stock imagery, describing a scene that you're looking for, dogs playing in the snow or what have you. But we also found that it's also great for a news editor who is perhaps building a package and needs a photo that is illustrating a certain mood or emotion. AI can be quite good at that. And as you'll see here, I entered in Putin touching his forehead. He looks a little concerned, a little stressed, and you'll see all the results that come back from AI in the background. And this kind of square in the middle, you see your search returns 0 results. That's kind of, metadata doesn't understand that necessarily. Another amazing feature of AI-powered search is what it can do for our video, for finding videos. What I have here is Queen Elizabeth with corgis and kids. That's what I entered, kind of random. And you'll see that the AI-powered search has returned some options in the top of Queen Elizabeth with her corgis and with kids. Below, you have some kind of random metadata results. Margaret Thatcher, Olivia Colman, that's probably about the crown. But what AI-powered search is doing here is it's actually scanning every frame of every video that we have in our archive, and it's looking for the exact kind of match of what you're describing in this search. So as you'll see at the top, these are actually these results. Each one is a moment, that's what we're calling it, a moment within a larger video of when you'll actually see Queen Elizabeth with kids and corgis. And you'll see this, the bigger square that I kind of pulled out. There are 2 moments within this video that will show that actually that moment that you're describing. One at 6:29 and one at 6:46. Now, moments have kind of 2 different views once you click into it. We have what we call a thumbnail view and a timeline view, and this is just kind of giving you a sense of what that looks like. This is Babe Ruth at bat from 1935. This video itself has 2 moments, so you'll see the thumbnail view over at the side, one at 55 seconds and one at 1 minute and 1 second. And then on the timeline side, you'll see it's represented with kind of bubbles. And as a user, you can kind of click through and take a look at those, scrub through and look at the moments and see which one fits what you're looking for. And of course, you know, we have British movie tone content, and it's just really cool to enter in whatever random search and just see what comes up. As Paul said, you know, going back to the 30s, going back to the 20s, there's not a lot of metadata. So you can really find a lot of stuff in our archives using this kind of search. Another kind of nice, pleasant surprise when we implemented this is we found that you can actually perform searches in other language other than English. So bicicleta naranja, Spanish for orange bike. As you can see, tons of orange bikes. We've had people reach out and say it works in French, it works in Italian, Arabic, German. So this is pretty cool as well, and something we hadn't quite anticipated. Stock imagery. I just did kind of a silly one here, a dog riding a bike. So you'll see, you know, you'll see stuff that looks like it's maybe from the 50s in the top right there. You'll see more modern ones. You could even get more granular and say, I want this person to be riding a red bike, or I want this dog to have a bow, or I want this dog to be holding a baguette, which that little Jack Russell is doing. You can kind of describe whatever scene you want. And again, we're not generating these, it's just searching what we have. Another example, if you're doing a story on supermarkets and children nutrition, you know, you can just enter kids in a supermarket and see what comes up there. You'll see kind of stock images of children in aisles of supermarket, and you can even get more granular from there. So when is metadata or keyword search better than AI? There are a few instances here. And so we found it really important to offer up both types of searches and be able to toggle back and forth depending on what you're looking for. So we found that for AI, it does its best to recognize faces. However, it depends on how prominent the figure is and you know how much content we have on that figure. So for example, here I did JFK wearing sunglasses, and you'll see AI did a pretty good job here, except there's one of Bill Clinton in a convertible. Clearly not JFK, but it's doing its best to kind of find JFK for me. So we always say it's, you know, use your best practices when performing an AI search. Check the metadata, check the caption, be sure the image is exactly what you're looking for. AI is not perfect. Another use case when you probably will need metadata is if you're looking for a specific location. For example, a cornfield in Iowa. AI knows what a cornfield looks like. It doesn't quite know what Iowa is or what it looks like. So when you do that search in AI, you may get cornfields in Kansas or cornfields in France. Like it really runs the gamut. So you have to be careful there. Another one kind of last example of when metadata is better is if you're looking for something very specific to the metadata, such as a certain photographer name. AI is not going to do a good job with that. The feedback so far from our customers, internal and external, has been pretty positive. Everyone's been finding different uses for it. We're getting feedback. We take feedback daily on it and think of ways to improve it. And so what's next? What is next for 2024? Kind of the top 3 priorities for the AP is what we're kind of referring to as a hybrid search. So hopefully hybrid search will marry the visual search with metadata to provide better results. So, that use case of JFK wearing sunglasses, hopefully this hybrid search would weed out the erroneous image of Bill Clinton. We also want to make this search multimodal, meaning not only do we want to apply this to photo and video, we want it to be audio, we want it to be text, we want it to be graphics, we want it to encompass everything. And then we hope to also utilize AI to better present related content and introduce more personalization to the platform. So, leveraging AI to kind of find a thread of what is related to the image that you're looking at. Is it visually similar? Is it contextually similar? And kind of serve up those results to help users discover content. And so, the technology is really evolving very quickly. So who knows where we will be this time next year. But that is a little bit of what we're hoping to accomplish. And I think I will turn it over for questions.
Great. Kenzie and Paul, thank you so very much. And Kenzie, I did want you to know that I'm a native Iowan. And I do know what my backyard used to look like. So I'm available to help train the model a little bit, on the cornfield things. Haven't seen those cornfields in a while, but funny to think about that. Thank you for an informative and provocative and very engaging presentation. There's so much to learn from this. And Kenzie, when you arrived at AP, where were you doing before? What was some of your background that gave you the opportunity to take the helm of a project like this? Because it's an important career aspect to the content which both of you shared.
Yeah, I started out my career as an editor, actually. And then I was at Yahoo Finance for about 10 years, and I kind of went from the editorial realm into more operations and then product management. Learned a lot at my time at Yahoo. And then I went to Fox Digital for a bit and was in charge of a lot of the CMS platforms and learned a lot about integrating, technology for internal CMSs and searches and such. So.
Thanks for that. We've had a lot of questions come in. I'm going to have the opportunity to share them with you. Interesting one, is the AI search slower than a normal metadata search?
No, actually, it's not. It's pretty quick. I would say the response time is no quicker, no longer than regular metadata search, amazingly enough.
Can you do a dual search at the same time where you both go metadata, traditional sort of DAM-ish search, and then an AI search. And I think our colleague was also curious when she was wondering, am I pushing two separate buttons or can I push them both at the same time?
Right. So if you are performing a regular search, like I said, that AI promotional kind of ribbon, that is kind of performing an AI search at the same time as your metadata search. So you'll see the majority of your results are metadata, and in that ribbon, you get kind of a snippet of like, what would it look like if I did this in AI? And so I think it returns 5 images, and you can kind of compare and contrast the two. However, if you toggle over to AI, it just kind of switches to AI.
Mm-hmm. And
sorry, one thing I wanted to say as well, just to be clear on AI results, because there's not any metadata involved in this. At this point, we're not able to filter. We're only able to filter by date, but not by location, person. Any other kind of filters don't quite work, but we are working towards applying more filters to, make it easier to find something from a certain source, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were some questions that came in about, is the model subsequent to a search being executed absorbing metadata that one could click on and say cornfield or this era or that source or something like that. So that answers several of those.
Great.
How much oversight do you have actively among the team for false positives, and can the users flag errors so that you get some comment or feedback or something?
Yeah, our AI vendor has been a really great partner, and we still meet with them almost on a maybe bi-weekly basis. And we encourage our users to flag any AI search results that don't quite look right. And we feed that back to the vendor, and they, continue with their training on their end.
Great. Thank you for that. Does the AI tool have capabilities to scan and identify, if relevant to the AP, any 3D material? And I'm not sure there's any of that in the asset store, but interesting. And I don't know the answer technically either from the software that's being used, but it was an interesting question.
Yeah, interesting. I haven't thought about it. I don't think so, because I don't think we have any 3D content. But thinking of multimodal, it would be an interesting thing to explore.
Mm-hmm. And Paul, a little bit more on your side of the house. You've had a long and very illustrious career at AP. When the tendrils for this first started to break ground and seem possible, what were the sources of influence and opportunity, and those maybe not as interested, that led to the investment in this thesis of opportunity to you to deploy this kind of technology organizationally?
It's such a great question, because like anything that represents a big change, you got to get a lot of people on board, within an organization if you want to do something like this. So there was conversation going on for at least 6 or 7 months among my team, which is a products team, and a group of other people who were in technology, salespeople, and basically we built a lot of grassroots support within the company first while this technology was evolving, and we were sort of looking at earlier versions of it. And as its capabilities sort of grew up at the same time that our awareness of it within the company was growing up. So ultimately, we needed to make sure that everybody to the top levels of the company saw the value of it, and we were pretty able to make a good presentation. By the time we had spent enough time sort of honing the argument and the examples, and key to that was being able to show a lot of customer feedback. And as is always the case with product things, getting a lot of customer feedback, both in terms of the problems that we've always faced in search and the responses to what we were seeing once these experiments started coming together. So it was grassroots across the company up to the top, and then we got a pretty quick yes once we had done all that homework.
Nice, thanks for that. It's the point of entry for AI broadly writ, and it can have so many meetings. Talk about lie on my couch and tell me what you see. The point of entry can be so different from organization to organization. We really appreciate your sharing the particular perspective and pathways that this traversed. Sometimes DAM managers face AI when a marketing manager goes to a conference and come back and says, who's got responsibility and authoritative control over DAM, comes back from a conference and says, now, Paul, could you do this next week? We have drop everything and do AI. And it's as ambiguated as that. And here's someone who's just trying to make the wheels go forward, confronted with this highly incoherent request to take something that's got all the noise and sometimes not much of the substance. But one of the issues of substance, and we've had a question come in that's gotten a lot of popular recognition, there are many legal issues that surround AI. There are legal issues to navigate about facial recognition, about ethnic sensitivities. There are legal issues about since this system does not do generative assets, as you mentioned very thoughtfully, Kenzie, and I'm so glad you said that early on, that you're using the actual things and not the imaginary things. But there are interesting questions about liability and rights issues, intellectual property rights, especially when we get over into the world of generative assets, as we don't have to talk about. So some perspectives on legal issues that you've been navigating and just to be ready for, and if there's anything in the insurance side of that, be curious about that.
So it's a great question, and I'll be totally frank. This is, we're in such early days with the legal implications of AI. This may be just a hair less hot than generative AI as far as the legal implications are concerned.
Oh, I think a whole head of hair, actually. So,
there's one of the questions I suppose would be, what if you return the wrong results because AI is wrong? Are there legal implications to that? And I think, no search is ever perfect, would be my short answer to that. I don't think that I've ever seen any search that delivers 100% accurate results. So I don't think that it's different in that regard. However, the question of ethnic sensitivity is a pretty important one, and that is something that was important to us. And it has to do with, do you have a model that has been trained to recognize everybody, or has your model been trained to recognize only a subset of people? And we have striven to do the former and not the latter, and make sure that this is something that's looking at everybody. So as we were looking at different types of technology that we might be able to employ, the everybody part of it was super important. So I think the legal side of things, we are also, this is a B2B service, right? This is not something that's being published out to the world. The platform that Kenzie showed you is what our customers see. So these are customers who are editors and different reporters around the world who also bring their own judgment to what they're seeing, which is why we're encouraging them to tell us if they see something that doesn't match up.
Great. Kenzie and Paul, thank you so much for putting this together. The geometry of opportunity and the ethics, the practicalities of engagement will continue to unfold. And I hope next year, as November rolls around, although AP will be pretty busy with something else, I hope that we'll have the opportunity to get an update. And we really appreciate the time that you took to put this together. On behalf of Henry Stewart and the Global DAM community, thank you both.
Thank you for having us.
You bet. We'll be back in 5 minutes for our next session, DAM's impact on driving marketing excellence and brand consistency. See you in 5 minutes. Thank you, Kenzie and Paul.